Hi there. We are on December 17th. It's called A True Fairy Tale. Looks like a picture of a city. And the reading is from Micah. You, O Bethlehem Ephrathah, are only a small village among all the people of Judah. Yet a ruler of Israel will come from you, one whose origins are from the distant past. The people of Israel will be abandoned to their enemies until the woman in labor gives birth. Then at last his fellow countrymen will return from exile to their own land, and he will stand to lead his flocks with the Lord's strength, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God. Then his people will live there undisturbed, for he will be highly honored around the world, and he will be the source of peace. Have you ever gotten lost in the pages of fairy tales with their castles and kings? Well, once upon a time, which was actually before time began, a story began that is better than the most otherworldly fairy tale you've ever heard. God gathered his children and told them what would happen even before it happened. The Father King of the heavens and of all the universe and his Son King looked across their kingdom and saw how all the children, sorry, I was being nosy, and saw how all the children they had made were being held captive by the dark and the sinfulness and the sickness and the badness. They knew their unconditional, unstoppable, unwrappable love had to come and get their people, us. So they came up with the very best rescue plan. This is what they decided. The Father King would open the backside of the world, and the Son King would unexpectedly slip right into the kingdom through a little unlikely door, Bethlehem. Remember Ruth, whose husband died? She followed Naomi back to nobody would be expecting little Bethlehem, whose name means, do you remember? House of bread. Many years later, Ruth's very own great-grandson, a puny little shepherd boy named David, spent many nights lying on the hills of Bethlehem, just staring up at the sea of blinking stars, his heart beating with God's heart. And then, long after King David, if you had stacked one year up after another until you had a teetering tower of 1,000 long years, the Son King Jesus slipped into the kingdom. He was born as a baby, about as small as a little loaf of bread, right there in a barn, and nobody would be expecting little Bethlehem. The moment the Sun King inhaled earth air into his lungs, the blinding light of history slashed back the smothering dark. And the Sun King brought joy from beyond the walls of the world, and shepherds lying out on those same Bethlehem hills saw the sky bursting with a blinding star over little Bethlehem, because who would be expecting all that? The Sun King did not grow up in a palace or even have a pillow to lay his head on. The Sun King had no throne or horse. He was a carpenter with a hammer, and he wandered the countryside fixing broken down bodies and broken up hearts, and breaking little loaves of bread to feed huge crowds of hungry people, because who would be expecting that? And then the Sun King let the very children he'd made and loved slap him and whip him and nail his always loving hands to a cross. And all evil and badness across the universe laughed as if they'd won. Then they wrapped the Sun King's limp, dead body in rags and forgot him in a grave. Who ever expected the tears of all this? But then, when no one was expecting anything from another world at all, the Sun King jolted right up in the grave alive, and the light forever shattered the darkness. The king flung off the rotting grave clothes and rose, his perfect heart beating hope loud in his chest. Monster stones rolled, because who would be expecting that? And the Sun King walked right out of that grave, his heel crushing the snake-like head of all the evil and badness, and all the king's children in the whole universe were wooed and wowed back to life again. It's coming. The kingdom's coming in little and small and unexpected ways, and the king is coming to rule the earth and make all the sad things untrue and make all the bad things become undone. Here's a picture of them going to Bethlehem while Mary is pregnant. See her on the back of that donkey? It's a beautiful picture. When we love in little ways, the big things unexpectedly begin to happen. They won't be expecting that. In little places, through unexpected people, the story is unfolding and unwrapping all around you and in you. The light overtaking the dark, and it's like you can see the new kingdom bursting in right now. how all the lit up trees and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. This story that is happening is better than the greatest fairy tale ever told because it's all true. So why do you think Jesus was born in such a small, insignificant town? Because Bethlehem was very small. So why do you think he was born there? And how does it make you feel to know that God can do amazing things in little places with unexpected people? That is December 17th.